He stood there, rain dripping from his hair, a baby in his arms, and a look I hadn't seen since our wedding day. "It's yours too," he said. "Elise? She's gone. I'm Marlo, 32. And yes, my husband left me just weeks after our honeymoon to care for a woman he swore was just a dying ex. Now he's back, with a baby, and a story that doesn't quite add up. If you were me, would you take him back or close that door forever? Tell me, what would you do? Drop your thoughts below, before the baby." Before the knock at the door, before everything fell apart, my life was quiet. Not perfect, but steady. I illustrate children's books from a sunlit studio in Portland. My world used to be made of ink paper and silence. Then I met Reed. We crossed paths at a gallery downtown. He wasn't looking at the art, he was watching me sketch in a corner with a plastic cup of Merlot. He said I looked like I was drawing a secret. I told him I probably was. Reed was a therapist, the calm kind. He listened more than he spoke. He liked jazz crossword puzzles and folding laundry while it was still warm. He was my first safe place. We dated slow, no fireworks, just candles, long walks, and conversations that wandered from childhood to books, to what made us cry. We married under aspens in Santa Fe, with sage in the air and my veil catching the wind like a sail. Our home in Portland was small but perfect. He had an office upstairs for client calls. I had my art studio by the window, with ivy creeping in. Mornings smelled like cinnamon and paint water. Nights tasted like wine and Reed's shoulder. He always made me feel chosen. But even in our softest moments, there was a shadow I learned to ignore. Elise. She was his long story. They'd been together for years, before me ended things when she moved to New York. He said it was over, no bitterness, just unfinished. Sometimes I'd catch him lost in thought when her name came up. He'd say things like, "She taught me how to sit still," or "Elise was the first person who understood my silences." I tried not to flinch when he said that, because we all have someone before. But then came spring. One night Reed came home late, hair damp from rain, lips drawn tight. He sat at the edge of the bed and took my hand like it was about to break. "Elise has cancer," he said. "Stage 4, glioblastoma, terminal." He told me her brother had reached out, that she didn't have family nearby, that she'd asked if he could come for support. He didn't ask me what I thought. He said I have to go. And I remember thinking, she's dying, but why do I feel like something inside me just started to... The first 3 days were quiet. Too quiet. Reed texted once that he'd landed, once that Elise looked weaker than expected, and once to say, "Things are complicated." Then nothing. No calls, no photos, no updates. Just silence, thick and stale like paint water left out overnight. I tried to tell myself not to spiral, not to make it about me. He was helping a dying woman, not vacationing in her arms. But it's funny what you start to notice when your house is too still and your coffee's always hot because no one's there to drink it with you. He stopped using our shared calendar. No green dots on FaceTime. No Spotify activity he used to play lo-fi jazz while journaling. I checked his Instagram, though he rarely posted. But something in me hoped for a breadcrumb. Instead, I found something else. A tagged photo from a local bookstore in Santa Fe, Elise's favorite, he once told me. The photo wasn't of him, but the caption read, "Brunch with the best soul I know. Sometimes love circles back." I didn't want to assume. I didn't want to be the woman stalking her own marriage like a stranger. But then I clicked the profile. It was Elise, still smiling, still glowing, still not dying. She was wearing sunglasses and sipping from a mimosa. Maybe it was from weeks ago. Maybe it meant nothing. But when I zoomed in, she was wearing a scarf I'd once seen folded in Reed's dresser drawer. I closed the app, turned off my phone, sat in the hallway where the morning light used to land on his slippers. I whispered, "Please, don't let this be what it feels like." But some truths don't need to scream. They whisper in the details, in the time zones that don't match. The sigh in his voice when he finally called and sounded almost happy. He said Elise was declining, but his words weren't heavy. His voice had a float to it, like someone remembering something sweet. That night I opened the drawer where he kept his journals. It was empty. And that's when I knew Reed didn't go there to say goodbye. He went there to remember what it felt like to be chosen first. I sent him a photo of my newest illustration, a bear brushing his teeth surrounded by stars. Reed didn't reply. 3 hours later, he texted, "Just got in from the clinic. Looks great." But I knew something was off. I checked the timestamp on the photo. It was 11:08 a.m. The clinic he claimed to be at, they closed at noon on Sundays. His message came at 5:42 p.m. It was a small thing, just a delay, a mix-up. But when you love someone, you start to memorize the rhythm of their lies. 2 nights later, he called. I heard wind chimes in the background, not hospital monitors, not the quiet hum of a hospice room. Wind chimes. Elise's porch, he said quickly, like I'd asked. I hadn't. His voice was relaxed, lighter. I asked how Elise was doing. He hesitated. Said she was in and out of sleep, mostly peaceful. Then he asked me how the garden was. I told him I'd replanted the lavender. He said she'll love that. Silence. I meant you, he added, but it was too late. That slippet cracked something open. She'll love that. I ended the call early, blaming a deadline I didn't have. The next morning, I walked to his favorite bakery and bought a lemon tart. Brought it home, placed it on the kitchen counter, and stared at it. We used to share those on Saturdays, cut in half, same fork. Now it just sat there, untouched, waiting for someone who was somewhere else, body or mind. I couldn't tell anymore. That afternoon, I got a message from a mutual friend. No greeting, just a screenshot. It was Elise's Instagram story, a blurry photo of 2 mugs, one labeled E, the other R. The caption read, "Some mornings are worth remembering." I told myself it could have been anyone, but Reed once told me Elise's coffee mug was always blue ceramic chipped near the handle because she never threw things away. That was the mug in the photo. And that was the moment I realized Reed wasn't calling to check in. He was calling to check out of our life bit by bit, lie by lie. I wasn't looking to find it. I swear I wasn't. I was just searching for a draft invoice on Reed's laptop. He'd left it behind, said he didn't need it while he was staying close to the clinic. The screen lit up, no password. He'd never hidden anything from me, until now. I opened the downloads folder out of habit, scrolled past PDFs and insurance forms until a file named Cedar House Rental April caught my eye. Cedar House. That wasn't a clinic. It was a vacation cabin outside Taos. We'd looked at it last fall for our anniversary getaway. I clicked. Reservation confirmed. April 3rd to 10th. 2 guests. 1 queen bed. My hands started to shake. In his inbox, the confirmation email was marked starred. Another email below it. Meal preferences. Vegan plus GF notes. That was Elise, always asking waiters if the pesto had pine nuts. I didn't cry. Not yet. I went back to the desktop and clicked on photos. There was a folder named Personal. I clicked. The first image was of Reed, sitting on a porch swing, Elise leaning against his shoulder, her face buried in his sweater. The caption read, "Us finally." The timestamp was 3 days ago. 3 days ago, he told me he was sleeping on a cot in a hospital room, reading aloud to her between treatments. Instead, he was curled up on a porch in the mountains wearing the same sweater I bought him last Christmas. My chest tightened, not from rage, from clarity. This wasn't about Elise dying. This was about Reed choosing. And it wasn't me. He hadn't left to be her caregiver. He had left to be her lover. And he hadn't just betrayed my trust, he'd repurposed our love story. Same places, same words, same sweater. Only I was no longer the person in the frame, just the ghost outside it. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the kitchen, wrapped in Reed's old flannel, watching the lemon tart slowly sink in its foil tin. I told myself 100 different versions of the story. One where he panicked, one where Elise manipulated him, one where this was all just some desperate dying wish gone too far. But none of them could explain the smile in those photos, the way he looked at her, the way he used to look at me. I opened our wedding album, ran my fingers over the page where he kissed my forehead under a string of fairy lights. I remembered the vows he whispered so softly, only I could hear. Even when it gets quiet, I'll still choose you. And now it was quiet, and he wasn't here. My mother used to say you don't really lose someone all at once. You lose them in tiny betrayals, a missed call, a shifted tone, a lie so small it feels like nothing, until one day you're the only one still holding the thread. And it's slipping. I wrote him an email, not to send, just to stop myself from unraveling. I asked, did you ever really say goodbye to her? Or was I just a pause between chapters? Is this what love looks like to you, something you recycle when it gets uncomfortable? I deleted it. I wasn't ready to send anything. I wasn't even ready to scream. But I was done pretending. I looked around our kitchen, the rosemary I planted in spring, the mug with M etched into it, the watercolor he framed last Christmas. This was mine too, and I wasn't going to let it become a backdrop to someone else's reunion story. If he came back, he wouldn't be coming back to the same woman. Because that woman, the one who stayed quiet, who gave him every benefit of every doubt, she died the moment he looked at Elise the way he used to look at me and didn't flinch. There's a photo I keep in my desk drawer. It's not framed, it's not displayed. Just kept. We're sitting on the porch steps in Santa Fe. It was the morning after our wedding. I'm barefoot holding coffee. Reed has his head on my shoulder, eyes closed like he never wanted that moment to end. I look peaceful and young and utterly convinced that real love stayed. I pulled that photo out the night after I found the emails, held it like it might explain something I'd missed. It didn't. It just reminded me how good we are at photographing lies. I remembered something he once told me. We were lying on the rug in the middle of a thunderstorm, sharing stories we'd never told anyone. He said I've only ever had one person make me feel like home, and I had believed without question that it was me. But maybe I was just the refuge he stepped into before turning back toward the fire that always burned too bright. That night I didn't cry. I gathered all his journals, the ones he left behind. I tied them with twine, placed them in a box, and set it by the door. Not as an offering, not as a threat, just a line. A soft final line between who I was and who I refused to be again. When I opened the door, I didn't gasp. I didn't flinch. I didn't even speak. I just stared. Reed stood on the porch soaked from head to toe, his hair curling with humidity, his hands trembling. And in his arms, a baby, wrapped in a floral blanket, asleep, peaceful. Her name's Rowan, he said, voice barely above a whisper. Elise, she's gone. I said nothing. I just stepped aside, not to let him in, but to give the storm behind him room to pass. He didn't move right away. His eyes searched my face for softness, for fury, for anything familiar. He didn't find it. When he finally crossed the threshold, he looked smaller. Not from the rain, but from something hollow behind his ribs. I noticed the baby's hat crocheted pale yellow, the kind Elise would have picked. Soft, delicate, like the version of herself she wanted the world to remember. Reed shifted his weight awkwardly. I didn't know where else to go, he said. I nodded once, no pity, no welcome. I led him to the couch. He laid Rowan down gently on a folded blanket. She stirred, let out a sigh, and fell back asleep like the world hadn't just cracked open again. I poured 2 glasses of water, set one in front of him, didn't sit. He looked up, soaked, disheveled, desperate. I need to tell you everything, he said. My voice came out low, even, sharper than he remembered. You will. And I meant it. He would tell me all of it. But this time, I wouldn't be listening as his wife, I'd be listening as the woman he'd made a liar of. And I wasn't here to make him feel forgiven. She lied, he said. No build-up, no hesitation, just 2 words that dropped like stones. I didn't ask who, we both knew. Elise never had cancer, he continued. She faked everything, the scans, the diagnosis, even the voicemail from her doctor. Her brother was never in touch. It was all her. My chest didn't tighten. It didn't ache. It just settled. Reed ran a hand through his wet hair, eyes flicking to the baby, still sleeping, unaware she had just become a permanent part of our undoing. She told me 2 weeks ago, he said, right after Rowan was born. Said she only admitted it because she thought I'd leave if she didn't come clean. I said nothing. I was angry, furious. I told her I needed time, that I'd come back to Portland, that maybe we could talk. His voice cracked at that last part. I didn't flinch. I didn't rescue him from the silence. He filled it himself. But the next morning she was gone. Left a note saying she wasn't meant to be a mother, that she was sorry, and that I needed to be with someone better, someone steady, someone like you. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. He looked up, eyes red, not from tears, but from exhaustion or shame. I don't know how I let it happen, he whispered. I thought she was dying. I thought I owed her something. He reached for the water glass. His hand trembled. I thought I was being compassionate, but I was just being stupid. I crossed my arms. No, I said. You were being selfish. Don't confuse the two. His mouth opened like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He just nodded, slowly, like a man finally realizing he'd burned the house down and expected a warm place to return to anyway. I looked at Rowan, small, still, and I wondered, was she the ending of something, or the beginning of something else? I'm not asking for anything, Reed said. He sat forward, elbows on his knees, eyes locked on his hands instead of mine. I know I don't deserve you. I just didn't know where else to go. I didn't answer. I stood, poured hot water into the mug with the chipped rim, the one he used to drink from. Then I reached for a different one, poured mine into that. A quiet choice, but clear. He watched me, noted the difference, said nothing. I don't need apologies, I said finally. Not now, maybe not ever. He nodded like he understood. But men like Reed rarely really understand. They hear your words, but not the reasons behind your tone. I don't know what to do, he admitted, his voice cracking. I have a child now. I don't know how to be a father. Elise? She didn't want this. I can't do this alone. That last line hung in the air like bait. But I wasn't biting. I walked to the edge of the living room, looked at Rowan. She stirred in her sleep, brows furrowed like even in dreams, the world felt unfamiliar. "She's not the reason you're here," I said softly. Reed blinked. "You came back because you had nowhere else to go, not because you suddenly remembered I was enough." He opened his mouth, closed it again. The silence was louder than any argument. I reached for a small notebook, one I kept by the couch, wrote down 3 names: a pediatrician, a grief counselor, and a lawyer. I tore the page and slid it toward him. "You'll need all 3. His eyes welled, but I didn't look away. "I'll help, for Rowan, because she didn't ask for any of this." Then I turned, not dramatically, not angrily, just with intention. And as I walked into the hallway, I heard his breath hitch. But I didn't stop, because the version of me who might have was gone, and the woman left in her place had finally remembered how to walk away while still standing tall. Reed stayed the night, not in my bed, not even in the guest room. I laid out a blanket and a pillow on the couch, told him where the baby formula was, where I kept extra burp cloths, and which side of the house was quietest at 3 a.m. He didn't argue. That night I lay in my room listening to the faint creaks of the floorboards, listening for hesitation, regret, any sign that he might still be the man I once trusted. But all I heard was Rowan's soft breathing, and Reed pacing. At sunrise, I found him standing in the kitchen, shirt, wrinkled hair, a mess, holding a bottle he clearly didn't know how to prepare. I took it from his hands, mixed the formula, handed it back. His fingers brushed mine, and he looked at me like he was hoping I'd crack. Say something kind, forgiving. Instead, I pointed to the rocking chair by the window. "She likes motion," I said. He sat down slowly, bounced gently, and whispered, "She looks like me." I stayed silent, not because I disagreed, but because that wasn't the point. He looked up at me. "I know I don't deserve a second chance, but maybe we could talk, sometime, just us." I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "I think we've said everything that needed saying, but you still helped," he said quietly. "You didn't have to." I met his eyes, calm, clear. "I helped Rowan, because she's innocent, because that's what decent people do." He opened his mouth, then closed it. "You're not the worst man I've ever known, Reed," I said. "But you're not the man I married either. And I don't have room in my life for ghosts who pretend they came back to stay." He looked away. I walked back toward the hallway but paused at the threshold. "Get some rest. You'll need your strength." He nodded, but the hope in his eyes dimmed, because somewhere deep down he finally understood. I wasn't angry anymore, I wasn't broken. I was done. He left the next morning with nothing but a diaper bag, a bottle, and a baby who still curled her fists like she was bracing for the world. No dramatic goodbye, no final embrace, no teary speech asking for a second chance. Just a glance from the doorstep, like he still thought I might change my mind if he stood there long enough. I didn't. He drove away slowly, like he was waiting for the sound of the door behind him to open again. But I never moved. And neither did my silence. By noon, my phone started buzzing. First, it was Elena from our college circle. She never liked Elise. "Did you see the thread?" She wrote. "Check Facebook. It's bad." I logged in. Not because I needed proof, but because I wanted to see how quickly people unravel when the performance falls apart. There it was, a post from one of Elise's coworkers. Long, detailed, screenshots time-stamped. Messages where Elise bragged about reclaiming what should have always been mine. How she knew just how to pull him back, play sick, play sweet, play sorry. People were angry, but not with me. They were furious for me. One user wrote, "She weaponized illness. That's unforgivable." Another, "How many people has she manipulated like this?" By evening, Elise Exposed was trending on Twitter in our region. Someone even dug up a wellness blog Elise had written full of quotes about healing through truth and building relationships on sacred transparency. Irony apparently has a strong digital memory. Then Reed's former therapy clinic quietly updated their website. His profile disappeared, his booking link gone, no statement, just vanished like they couldn't scrub the association fast enough. And yet I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt done. Exhausted in the way only emotional survival makes you. A few friends reached out, some with genuine compassion, some I could tell just wanted the details. A few were silent. Those were the ones who once cheered for Reed and Elise at dinner parties. The ones who said he's such a grounded man. Now they weren't sure what side to land on. Let them drift. Let them go. I wasn't holding anyone anymore who hadn't held me back. That weekend I took a walk around the neighborhood. No makeup, no headphones, just presence. I passed a couple pushing a stroller. The woman smiled at me, not with pity, not with concern, but with something closer to respect. And I realized, you don't always need to explain your strength. Sometimes just walking chin level, eyes forward, heart steady, is enough to remind people that pain doesn't get the final word. The bookstore owner I'd known for years, a woman named Miriam with violet glasses and blunt wisdom, handed me a paper bag the next morning. No receipt, she said. Inside was a hardcover copy of Jane Eyre, a yellow sticky note stuck on the title page. You burned quietly, and somehow that was louder. I stood by the window that day, watching a mother teach her toddler how to hold a ladybug without squishing it. And for the first time since Reed left that porch holding another woman's child, I smiled without feeling like I owed anyone an explanation. The baby, she wasn't mine. But the future, that absolutely was. Last week I found a tiny sock in the laundry, still folded, still clean. It had fallen behind the dryer. One of Rowan's, I think. I held it for a moment longer than I meant to, then tucked it into a drawer I no longer open often. People assume closure is an event, like a courtroom verdict or a final confrontation. But for me, it arrived quietly, in pieces, in peppermint tea, in sunlight hitting the same corner of the wall each morning. I didn't move out of the house. Everyone thought I would. Too many memories, they said. But I stayed. Repainted the studio, bought new curtains, took down our wedding photos, not out of bitterness, but because my walls deserved stories that still had a future. Some days I sit on the porch swing with a blanket and a book. Neighbors wave. They don't ask about Reed anymore. Most don't mention Elise at all, which is a gift in its own quiet way. My mother sent me a box a month after everything happened. Inside were postcards I'd written her years ago, from camp, from college, from New Mexico the week before my wedding. On the back of one was a sentence I had forgotten writing. It said, "I don't know what love is yet, but I think I'll know by what it makes me brave enough to walk away from." I pinned it on the fridge. Forgiveness came slower. Not for Reed, but for myself. I had to forgive the version of me that believed too quickly. The one who folded his shirts with care, even when her gut told her something was off. The woman who left extra toothpaste on the sink because he always forgot his. She wasn't weak. She was just hopeful. And now I know hope isn't a flaw. It's a doorway. Some people think I should have fought harder, should have screamed louder, should have burned everything to the ground. But I didn't need flames to be free. I needed stillness, a sense of what I wouldn't carry forward, and who I wouldn't follow backward. Rowan sends drawings sometimes, crayon portraits, sunshine with eyes and stick figures holding hands. Reed includes short notes, nothing emotional, just updates. She's doing well. She started walking. She said mama to the daycare teacher and made someone cry. I read them, I smile, I don't respond. There's peace in the silence now, not punishment, just balance. I started teaching art classes for kids on Saturdays. Finger paints, storybooks, laughter. Sometimes a little girl will ask, "Do you have kids?" And I say, "Not really." And that feels honest, because what I have is enough. A home that smells like orange peels and clean paper. A fridge full of groceries just for me. A shelf of books I no longer apologize for loving. And a heart that still beats in full steady rhythm even after breaking. Grief didn't hollow me out, it made more space. For joy, for curiosity, for quiet mornings that don't ache anymore. If I could go back and speak to the woman I was the one who watched her husband walk away into another woman's lie, I'd say this: you don't need to win, you don't need to fix, you only need to live well enough that they no longer belong in your story's final page. And I have. I really have. So if this story found its way into your ears, into your own quiet ache, into your kitchen at midnight, or into the long drive home after something broke, know this: you are not weak for loving, you are not foolish for trusting, you are not alone for choosing to start over. You are simply a person who dared to believe that dignity matters more than revenge. And that is the kind of ending worth telling. If this story touched you, share your own. Somewhere someone is listening and waiting to feel a little less alone.